You know, we have this habit of lumping all introverts into one big, quiet box. But the reality is so much more fascinating. Today, we're going to crack open that box and look at two types of introverts who are on the inside about as different as you can get. And yet, they both have this incredible, quiet power. It really all starts by asking one simple question.
So let's just get right to it. Are all introverts the same? I mean, really? We all have this mental image, right? The quiet person, maybe a little shy, hanging out in the corner. But what if that's just the surface level? What if the internal wiring of two people who look equally quiet on the outside could be so radically different that they experience the world, and especially stress, in completely opposite ways?
Well, meet our two quiet powerhouses. First up, we've got the INFP, who we'll call the idealist. These are the quiet dreamers, the ones whose every move is guided by this deep, internal set of values and a powerful sense of empathy. And then, in the other corner, we have the ISTJ, the inspector. These folks are the quiet realists. They're all about logic, duty, and trusting what has been proven to work. Both are introverts, for sure, but their internal operating systems, they're from different planets.
Okay, so first, let's pull back the curtain and explore the inner world of the dreamer, the INFP. To really get them, you have to look right past that quiet exterior and step into this rich, incredibly vibrant world of deeply held values and endless possibilities that they live in.
So at the very heart of the INFP is their main engine, something called introverted feeling, or FI. Now, this isn't about being feely in the way we usually think. It's more like a finely tuned internal moral compass that is constantly guiding them. Is this true to me? Is this authentic? And then you pair that with their superpower for exploring new ideas and seeing hidden patterns, that's extroverted intuition, or NE, and you get someone who is just incredibly open-minded and always searching for authenticity. It's why they can feel so alive in a creative job, but just completely suffocated by rigid rules and bureaucracy.
And this quote just nails it, doesn't it? Quiet on the outside, swirling with thoughts and emotions on the inside. That's the whole story. They are often the ones in a group who are picking up on the emotional undercurrents, the things nobody's saying out loud. They just can't help it. They feel everything so deeply.
All right, now I want you to do a complete 180 in your mind. Let's switch gears and meet the inspector, the ISTJ. Because if the INFP is living in this world of what could be, the ISTJ is firmly, and I mean firmly, planted in the world of what is and what has always worked.
The ISTJ is all about practicality and logic. Their number one tool is introverted sensing, or SI. Think of it like this perfect, high-fidelity internal database of every experience they've ever had. They remember the concrete details, what worked, what failed, and exactly why. And then they use their second tool, extroverted thinking, or T, to take all that data and organize the outside world for maximum efficiency. Honestly, this is the person you want running the show when things get complicated. Their ability to create order out of chaos is just unmatched.
So you can actually map this out. This is the wiring diagram for the ISTJ brain, their cognitive stack. Up top, you have their dominant function, psi. That's their default setting, their most trusted tool. It's always asking, what does my experience tell me? Right below, supporting it, is TE, bringing logic and order. But look all the way down at the bottom, the inferior function. That's extroverted intuition, the brainstorming what-if part of the brain. For the ISTJ, that's their blind spot. And believe me, that's going to become really important in just a minute.
So, okay, we have the dreamer and the inspector. Both are these incredibly competent, quiet forces in their own right. But what happens when you push them? What happens when they're under serious, long-term stress? Well, this is where their fundamental wiring reveals itself in the most dramatic way possible.
And the concept we need to understand here is called grip stress. This is not just having a bad day. This is that long-term, grinding stress that just drains your battery completely. And when it hits, your reliable, dominant function basically shorts out. And what happens? That little used, clumsy, inferior function from the bottom of the stack, it lunges for the steering wheel. It's a complete and total personality hijack.
For the INFP, this is an absolute nightmare. Their inferior function is that logical, organizing, extroverted thinking T, the very tool the ISTJ is a master of. But in the INFP, it's underdeveloped, it's immature, and frankly, it's angry. So the normally gentle, empathetic, and flexible INFP suddenly becomes obsessed with cold, hard facts. They start barking orders and lashing out with this really biting, critical sarcasm. They feel totally out of control, and they are literally unrecognizable to themselves.
And what about the ISTJ? Well, their grip stress comes from their inferior function, extroverted intuition. Ni, the INFP's playground of possibilities. For the ISTJ, that function is like a house of horrors. When they're in the grip, the grounded, sensible inspector becomes completely paralyzed. They're just lost in this terrifying whirlwind of catastrophic what-ifs. All of a sudden, they see a million negative futures, and they can't find their footing in reality anymore.
So look at them side by side. It's a total inversion of their personalities. The INFP, a natural feeler, turns into this cold, aggressive pseudo-thinker who's just fixated on every little failure. Meanwhile, the ISTJ, a natural sensor who trusts reality, becomes this frantic, paranoid pseudo-intuitive who can only imagine every possible disaster. Each one is hijacked by the very part of their mind they trust the least.
But here's the most important part. Understanding this isn't just some fun personality quiz trivia. It is absolutely essential for pulling yourself out of that stress spiral. Because once you know what's happening, you can build a toolkit to not just survive it, but to actually thrive.
So for the INFP, the way out of the grip is all about reconnecting with their core self, with their main function. Notice that these strategies aren't about logically fixing the external problem. They're about quieting all that external noise so their true self can come back online. Getting alone time, it's completely non-negotiable. Journaling helps them sort out the emotional chaos. And this last one is critical. They need empathy, not solutions. They need a friend who will just listen and say, wow, that sounds incredibly hard. Not someone who says, well, here's what you need to do.
Now, the ISTJ's toolkit looks pretty different, right? For them, it's about gently and strategically engaging those weaker functions to build up their strength over time, not just escaping the stress. So embracing a new experience in a small, systematic way helps build their mental flexibility. Actively challenging those catastrophic thoughts by forcing themselves to list possible positive outcomes, that's like taking their weak intuition to the gym. It builds resilience so they're less likely to fall into the grip in the first place.
So what does all this really boil down to for you? Well, it means that understanding your personality type is like someone handing you the technical schematic for your own brain. It's about finally knowing your default settings, your greatest strengths, and yeah, your most critical vulnerabilities.
And this, right here, is the ultimate point. This stuff isn't about labeling yourself or sticking yourself in a box. It is the exact opposite. It's about getting the user manual. It's a guide that tells you what kind of fuel you run on, what causes your engine to overheat, and what kind of regular maintenance you need to be performing at your absolute best. It hands you the power to actually manage your own psychology.
So, I'll leave you with this question to think about. Whether you see yourself as an INFP, an ISTJ, or something completely different, what's one feature of your own internal operating system, a core strength, or maybe even a known bug, that you can start to work with instead of against starting today?